If you look on the website today, you'll see that I've assigned group members, and they're right on the Moodle page, and you'll see the group members that you're in. And the computer went out and generated 7 groups of 35 people per group. Let's talk about the group project. It's due on the 15th of October, and it's going to be worth 100 points. The Pro Forma is worth 50 points. You're going to do a 12-month, month-by-month Pro Forma. You can do summaries for years 2 and 3. You're going to provide break-even analysis at 6 months, and you're going to tell me the minimum funds required to start the business. And then the executive summary, and we'll talk about each of those as we go. And the last thing, everyone will have to grade their group members, all the members in the group, other than themselves. And if your group says you're a deadbeat and you didn't do any work, then your grade will be reflected. So make sure you participate. And this is a quickie group. We're finished for midterm. So on Monday, the 7th, which is just a couple of weeks away, I want you to tell me what kind of company y'all are starting, what 2 products are being sold, and what are the roles of the member. Now, I'm going to explain all of this as we get further into today's presentation. Building a pro forma. You can't do the executive summary until you build a pro forma, because you need the numbers from the pro forma to build the executive summary. So here's what you do. I'm going to Boudreaux's, and we're going to actually build a pro forma so you know exactly what we're doing. Calculate the first month's figures. All you really need to do is calculate that first month's figure. Seems overwhelming. How do I say what's going on 6 months from now or 2 years from now? You calculate the first month's figures and you work it from there. You calculate the first month's, you determine break even. We're going to assume for this project, break even is going to be done in 6 months. If you ever get a proposal and they say they're going to break even the first month, run from it, because they need the money before they can do anything. And it's going to take time to get permits, set your place up. So no, we're going to assume break even in 6 months. You're going to figure out the first months. You're going to set up the 6 months as break even, and then you'll scale the growth from the first to the 6 month. And then we'll assume some growth from months 7 through 12, and we'll talk about that. So we're going to develop a pro forma. Now, I sent this to you guys. I sent you a template that you'll use for the group. All the groups are going to send just one. That's all you're going to do is send one pro forma and one executive summary. If you look at the little red dots on here, if you click on it, I've given you tips how to fill out each one. Everything starts with the unit sold, sales price. You got to come up with a price for product 1, product 2. Now, most companies sell more than 2 products, but early on, what we're doing is running the numbers to see if this business makes sense. So you narrowed it down to 2 broad products. So let's suppose in Boudreaux, we're going to show you he catches alligator. He's selling the meat and he's selling the skins. Now, there's other stuff he can sell, but the main 2 products are meat and skin. And we're going to tell you how he came up with a variable cost. Then we look at his fixed costs. These won't ever change. They're there every month. Then we look at the one-time setup cost to see what does it take to start this business. That's what goes into a pro forma. But the first thing you want to do is calculate the first month. If you've calculated the first months, you've done break even. It's very simple from there, and I'll show you how it works. All right, so you begin with a 12-month pro forma. Figures are major estimates. Go up beyond 12 months. Is it realistic? No, not really. Well, we're going to limit to 2 products, 2 major categories. On the bottom, there's going to be a place for note. Anything you do or any assumptions you make, put it on your bottom of your pro forma. You'll later on forget how you did it. And the thing is, every cell, when you do something, it needs a calculation. So here's where you're going to start off. One of the big things your group's going to have to do is identifying the product and the sales price per unit, because it's going to be an average sales price. Let's suppose at a restaurant, some people will get hamburgers and some people are going to eat a seafood platter. So let's suppose at a restaurant, and I would say my 2 major revenues would be beverages and meals. So I'd look at the meals and say, oh, average, and if I was a a waiter or a waitress, and you're getting paid commissions, you know what your average person is going to buy. When they come in, your table, let's suppose you say the average person,
that are ready for you.
people that come in and the ticket's $45. So you can divide it up and figure this much per person. And that's the way you would do it. And we'd come up with some rough estimates. What we're coming up with, we're going to use a SWAG method, SWAG, SWAG. It's a scientific wild-ass guess. Based on your experience, you worked at a restaurant forever, you're setting up a restaurant, your background knows. Now, do I have any idea what's going to sell 3 years from now? I'm going to show you how to come up with those. And so we one-time setup costs, break even, and total funds required. With that being said, let's do this. Let me stop sharing this screen. So here's what Boudreaux's doing. This is an example of a quiz I gave a couple of semesters ago in my class. I gave them this sheet and I gave them a Pro Forma, a blank Pro Forma sheet, and I said, work this out. So here's the facts of the thing. Boudreaux's decided to set up an alligator business. He's calling it Boudreaux Alligators. He's going to have 4 boats with 2 people in each boat. Now, we built out the details, and this is what we got to work out. To start the business, he'll buy the 4 boats and all equipment necessary to hunt alligators. He estimates the total cost of his equipment will be $250,000. License and everything else will be around $70,000. These costs would include setting up a warehouse where he'll process the alligators he catches. He thinks he'll build his 2 products, remember, meat and skin. He thinks he'll be able to sell the meat and skin from the alligators he catches. He says he thinks each boat will catch 3 alligators per day during the first month. He feels he'll be able to hunt alligators an average of 20 days per month. He says they're going to average about 300 pounds and 5 feet in length. Alligator buyers usually pay $1.40 a pound. And it says the average meat per alligator, once you all strip it down, is 40 pounds. The $8 per foot, the feet is 5 feet. The cost of processing the alligator meat is 40% and the alligator skin is 55%. These costs include the labor for catching the alligator. So this is giving you the background information. At the warehouse, he'll have a warehouse manager and assistant. The monthly expenses he will incur at the warehouse are as follows. Now, someone's going to be lucky because they might have an accounting major in that group. Because what we've done, we've laid out what his sales revenues are going to be. We laid out what his variable costs are going to be. Now we look at his fixed cost. Let's do this. Let's go back now. This is the pro forma. So what we would do up here, it says, see Ron Cheek, just an operational pro forma. So what we're doing is we're just doing a cash flow statement. That's all we're doing. So each one of these things, I'm telling you what we should do. Start out with alligator meat. Now he says 40 pounds. So let's change this to 40. So he's going to get 40 pounds and he's going to get 5 feet of skins. He's going to get alligator meat and alligator skins, $140 and $8 a foot. So let's start off. How do we figure out how many pounds of meat he's going to get? He's going to have 4 boats. And what he's going to do, he says that he thinks he'll be able to catch 3 alligators per day times 3. And he says 20 days a month times 20. He thinks for the first month, 240. So he's going to catch 240 alligators. So what we say is that each alligator is going to produce 40 pounds of meat. We would do times 40. We'd come up with 9,600 pounds of meat. Alligator skins, he would get 5 feet. So we have 240 times 5. Now, our sales revenues, this is all we need from the alligators now. Our sales revenues would say plus the meat times the price, which would be $1.40. And then we'd say skin is plus the skins times 8. So now what we have is our total sales revenue. And once again, we've got to show all calculations. We want to see everything you're doing. So we know our sales revenue for the first month is going to be $10,800. Now, he says that the processing cost for alligator meat is 40%. And he says the alligator skin is 55%. So now all we do is take our meat, which is 13,000 times 40%, and we know our processing costs. And we do the same thing with our alligator skins times 55. So we know that our variable cost is 10,656. To get our operating revenues, we take our total revenue minus our variable costs, and we have operating revenues of 144. So let's stop there for just a second. On what does this mean? What do we know right away about the first month? Are we going to make money or are we going to lose money? We have a operating revenue of 145, but we hadn't paid salaries or anything else. So let's go to fixed costs, and we know we have salaries. These are our fixed costs. So we know we have 7,000 for Boudreaux's salary. We got his warehouse manager of $4,500, assistant manager $2,500. So we have $14,000. Now we have a warehouse rental of $3,000, and we have gasoline and truck expenses of $2,500, and we've got internet cable of $1,000. So let's look at our total fixed costs. So we know if we take our operating revenues minus our fixed costs, for the first month, we've lost $20,356. So here's what we do. We now have to figure out what's the first one-time setup cost. He said the machinery, equipment, and everything was $250,000. He said other expenses were $70,000. So his total expenses, the one-time cost to set it up, are $320,000. So at this point, we know if he comes to an investor and asks for an investor for money, the investor would say, he would tell the investor, at the first month, I need $320,000. I'm going to do a minus because we need $320,000 plus the $20,000 I lost. Here we are, we've done our first month's pro forma, and we see we lost $20,000 in the first month. So what we need to do is we need to calculate break even for the 6th month, because we've decided that we want to break even in 6 months. Go back to our slideshow. We identified the products. We did that. We calculated the number of units sold. We calculated the fixed costs. We did the one-time setup costs. And now we need to do break even. So how do we do break even? Here we go. Here's the break even analysis. We have the fixed cost. We have the variable cost. And we have total revenue. Anything below the break even point is a loss. Anything below here is a loss. Anything above is a profit. So what we're saying when we say break even is going to occur in the 6th month, we're letting the investor know for the first 6 months, we're going to lose money, but we're going to break even in the 6th month. So let's see how we calculate that. Losses until break even plus one-time setup cost, that's the total funds required. Back to the minimum funds required again. Remember, we had those one-time setup costs. We had losses to break even. Is the $340,356 minimum required enough? Of course not. We're going to need the losses for month 2, month 3, month 4, and month 5. And in month 6, we'll finally break even. So when we ask the investor for money and he says how much we want, we'll show him the pro forma and show we need this much for setup. We're going to lose this much until we break even, and then we'll get to break even and we'll be there. This also tells us one of the big things about this business plan, because that's what we're doing. And people talk about on the back of a napkin, writing the numbers out, running the numbers. That's what we're doing. So we run the numbers, and when you guys set up these companies and you run the pro forma and you do the executive summary, if it doesn't make sense, you can say, Dr. Cheek, here's what we plan on doing, but it doesn't make sense and our numbers prove it. That's fine. I don't have a problem. Now we've calculated the first month's figures. We've got to determine break even. Here's the formula. Fixed cost by the sales price of 1 unit minus variable cost of 1 unit gives you break even. We got a problem here. We've got 2 units, right? So what we've got to do, we got to calculate the break even for skins and a break even for meat. And the 2 of those combined will give us the break even figure. So let's go back to our pro forma. Hope I'm not making you guys dizzy yet. So let's go back to our pro forma. So if we have meat and we have skin, our total fixed cost is $20,500. Now, meat doesn't have to cover $20,500. I mean, yeah, $20,500. And skin, they each cover their portion. So what portion do they cover? Real simple. To get meat, what we do is we take the sales revenues for meat divided by total revenues. Let's do total revenues. That number's wrong, guys. How did I come up with that number? Let's see. So you can see that meat represents 58% the total revenue. Skin, on the other hand, if we go plus 9,600 divided by the total revenue, you'll see it's 42. And the sum of those two has got to equal 100. So you know you did it right. So now what I do is I find out what percentage of the fixed cost does meat cover, what percentage of the fixed cost does skin cover. So what I would do is I'd say plus the fixed cost times 58%, and then I'll do the same thing here, plus fixed cost times 42%. And when I do the sum, it's going to equal, so we have covered our fixed cost. But we see meat covers 11,958 and skin does 8,542. So we need to get to break even in units. So how do we come up with break even units? Let's go back to the sharing, to the formula. So here we are, fixed cost divided by the price of 1 unit minus the variable cost of 1 unit. So the total fixed cost, the fixed cost covered by that product divided by the variable price minus variable cost is, we'll say the fixed cost here, their portion of the fixed cost, divided by, and we'll say divided by the sales price of 1 unit is 140 minus the variable cost is 40%. Well, the variable cost is really 1.4 times 0.4. Let's see if we can get there now. So we know the units to break even is 14,236. We do exact, now, when you go in and look at this, you can see the formulas up and you can go back and see exactly what I did. All right, now what we'll do is the same thing here. We'll say plus the fixed cost covered by skin divided by the sales price of 1 unit, which is $8, minus $8 times 0.55, 2,346. So what we know is, this is in units. That's what we come up. Now what we do is we go to units and we go plus this number and we say plus this number will give us the break even. All we do then is real simple. All we do is copy these figures over, paste them here, and we have break even for month 1 through 6. And all we do now is we scale from 2 through 6. So we have 96 here. We have to get to 14,000 here. We're at 1,200 and we get here. So let's suppose we put 11,000, 12,5, 13,5, 13,8, and now we're at 14. And let's suppose we go here and we go 1, 3, because once again, all we're scaling up to is to those break-even figures that we know. So we say, so now all we have to do, remember when you copy those formulas? If we copy them and paste them here, so what do we see? We've come up with our 6-month pro forma. What we know is that we lost 8,000, 6,000, 4,000, 3,000, 1,700, we're there. If I use plus this 350, 328,116, I'm doing minus to make this a positive. So after the 2nd month, I'll need 334,000, and all I'm doing is adding the losses. Here I would see if I added this, I know I've reached break even. So what I've done is that I have shown you how we went from a loss of 8,000 to break even in 6 months. And I can tell the investor the bare minimum I need is $345,124 to start this business. From there, I could easily go back over and expand this, do 7 through 12 month by month. And then what I would do, years 1, a summary for 1, do years 2 and 3, not by a monthly basis. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick some number because we'd like this like a hockey stick to take off and go up. If you go to the page in your Moodle course, see where I have the group members listed up there? Those are your group members. What you should be able to do, what I also did up here in the top, I'm going to go up and show you that I put in one of these has group summary and pro forma information. Put some information in there, but I also put some Boudreaux files. Oh, I put them up here. When I said Boudreaux alligator examples, I put those 2 files in there so that what you guys could do. And what I'll do is I'll save these with the numbers in there so you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Now, here's the important thing too. It's very important that if you look at the pro formas, this will answer your questions in most cases. If you go on each one, it'll give you information as to what's going on and any questions you might have. And I'll send you all this one with the numbers filled in so that you'll be able to see what I did. But whatever you do, I want you to show me your calculation so that I'll know that exactly what you've done. But if you do the calculations, one of the big problems almost everybody does, they try to get meat to cover the full fixed cost. And they try to get each product to cover the full fixed cost. But each product is only going to cover their share. If this had been a restaurant, rather than alligator meat, you might have beverages and you might have food, and then you would work out a percentage. Now, one of the things that you remember is that what Boudreaux did, he laid it all out in the front, and he said to buyers that when he got the meat processed, it included his cost for those 2 people in the boat, and so that there was included in his variable cost. Now, in most cases, what you might want to do, rather than calculating 15 waiters or waitresses or hostesses, you might load wages into the cost of your food or beverage. Otherwise, what you could end up doing, you want to keep your fixed costs as low as possible. And the way you do that is loading everything in variable cost. In the 6 months when you're opening, month 2, you hadn't opened the doors, you're not going to be paying a server until you open the doors. And what we're really doing right now is running the number to see, does the business work or doesn't it work? So here's what happens. I raised $500,000 one time to buy 250 coin-operated phones. Remember when you put the quarters in the phone and use the phone? Well, I had 250 of those phones all around New Orleans, every bar in New Orleans. And boy, if somebody left a quarter at night, lost a quarter at night, there's the last quarter, they ripped the receiver off, cost me $25. But I raised it on a pro forma, just like this. And I showed them how many phone calls I was going to get, how many it took to break even, and we did it. And 3 investors out of Mexico City came. They had a Volkswagen Audi dealership rights in Mexico, and they invested $500,000 in our coin-operated company. Of course, you know there's very few coin-operated phones now. We had made a little money, but not the money we had hoped to make. And so this is what you're going to do. It's just that simple. I gave you the break-even, but the thing you need to remember about break-even, I want you to have 2 units, not 3, not 4, not 6, not 1, but 2 units, because you're running the numbers. After 6 months and you've been in the business, you'll be sophisticated to break it down into more products. But to run the numbers and see if it works, this is what you need. Assume break even at month 6. Why 6 months? Overestimate your cost and underestimate your revenues. Be as conservative as you can. Be as realistic as you can. Be as conservative as you can. Up the number you're going to catch with alligators, and maybe lower your expectations of cost. Or maybe you tell them it's getting $2 a pound instead of $1.40. Be realistic on the way in and see where it goes. You're going to scale growth up to 6. Remember where we were to get to break even? scale it up, assume growth for months 7 through 12. Once again, we want to grow at a much faster rate than you did 1 through 6. Usually 15% in the first year from 7 to 12, 25% in the second year, and 35% in the third year. That's what we're doing, guys. And I'm going to come back and I'll be able to give you some more information. But this is where we're going, and this is what we're doing.